Welcome to The Download. On this episode of The Download, I'm joined by Steve Worrall, Managing Director for Microsoft Australia. You'll notice that the scene is a little bit different today. We're actually at the offices in North Ryde for Microsoft, so here in Steve's home turf to have a chat. Steve, welcome to The Download.
It's fantastic to be here, Ronnie. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join.
No, it's wonderful to have you. So let's just start, tell us about what's a day in the life of the Managing Director of Microsoft Australia?
Day in the life. Well, I mean, lots of things. Major focus on our customers and our partners, I think, would be the primary thing that worries me or concerns me on a daily basis. We have 11,000 partners across the country, as you know. Incentra is one of those 11,000, one of our wonderful partners in the country. So working with that partner community is obviously very important. But then also making sure we bring the best of Microsoft to all of the customers that we have across the country.
And so, one of the things that our viewers often like to understand is, to get to the level that you have in running an organisation like Microsoft, big global organisation, massive presence in Australia, one of the most successful geographies for Microsoft globally. What's been your career path? How did you actually get into this ultimately? Where did you start? What did you do?
Started many years ago. I guess I'll go back to university. So back in 1980 sometime, 1986 I think I started. Did an electrical engineering degree. Started with IBM once I'd finished that and got into the IT industry. So I think that was really the starting point in terms of why the industry. It was a great opportunity to join a fantastic company back in the early 90s. Worked with IBM in a variety of spaces, so it was pretty much of a generalist career in sales, marketing, ran the financing business for a while, worked in the software business, the hardware business, the services business, sort of got a good apprenticip, if you like.
So you were a techie and a salesperson?
No, I started more on the sales and marketing side. I started with an engineering degree, but figured marketing was more my interest, but I did have a range of experiences during that time at IBM. I joined Microsoft about 4 years ago. So
straight out of IBM?
Yeah, straight out of IBM.
Long career at IBM?
Yeah, long career at IBM. I was there for 20 years, so here and overseas. So I spent some time in New York working for IBM, which was fantastic personal and professional experience just to get an appreciation of a global business. Came back to Australia. The kids, wife and the kids, we thought about where we wanted to be as a family and where we wanted to grow up, and decided we wanted to bring them back here. So the kids were still pretty young, so we came back to Australia and obviously stayed with IBM for a little while, then joined Microsoft 4 years ago. So that's sort of been the journey through the IT industry, but also getting a broad range of experiences, I think, to bring me to this point in my career.
And when you started with Microsoft 4 years ago, what was your role then?
I was the EPG lead, which is the Enterprise and Partner Group lead. So it's a part of the leadership team that looks after the enterprise segment for Microsoft, but also the partner relationships across the country as well. Okay,
and so did that role for the sort of 3 odd years?
Did for 2 years. So it's about a year and a half, now. So about 2 to 2.5 years in EPG. So learning a bit about the Microsoft environment and the organisation. It's an organisation that takes a little bit of time to get familiar with and to understand. So I did that for 2.5 years, and then became the MD in December of 2016.
And around about that time, that's when Microsoft really started to reinvent itself again. I mean, probably when you started with Microsoft.
Just as I started, timing works out in these cases. But I've been very fortunate. There's no two ways about it. I joined in March of 2014, and it was at that time I think Satya had just been appointed as the CEO of the company. And since that time, the business has been through a massive change, as everyone will be aware. Largely, I think being culturally renewed, if you will. So the company, I think, had reached a point in its evolution where it wasn't seen as being as relevant for its customers, for its partners, for the marketplace. And the last 4 years have been obviously an amazing time to be at Microsoft as we've reinvented what the business stands for.
Yeah, look, as a channel partner of Microsoft, and we probably started around the same time that you started at Microsoft, about 4 years ago.
Right.
So not necessarily as au fait with what Microsoft was from a channel perspective, but certainly from an end user perspective, from a client perspective, from a in-market perspective. Was aware of it, but the change has been, somewhat revolutionary, and it's not just cloud. It's the overall Microsoft business and how you go to market, how you operate internally. One of the things I've said to people that I find the most refreshing about working with Microsoft people is the question is always, well, what can we do for you? How can we help you? And that was a big turnaround, and it's something that I saw, even though it started 4 years ago, I really saw it start to come to fruition in the past couple of years.
Good.
And you mentioned, changing the view for channel partners and et cetera. So what do you think that has, if you could sort of pick the top few things that Microsoft has done that's different, where you feel like you're making a difference to the channel community, to the resellers, et cetera, that you have, what do you think some of those might be?
I think just being simpler to do business with. It's something that I don't think we've really made enough progress on, to be honest. So delighted to hear your feedback in terms of what we're doing well. That's awesome. But I think every day we get up, there's a new opportunity for us to really improve again. And this idea of being simpler to do business with, if you've been a partner with us for any period of time, you'll know that there is a certain overhead or complexity in doing business with Microsoft. So we're working very hard to make sure we make that easier to do business with us through tools, through changing processes, and through just simplifying how we go about doing what we do. I think that's probably the number one. And the second thought, I think, is in relation to the fact that we see ourselves as a platform company. So we have always been very channel-centric, right? 11,000 partners in Australia tells you something about the history of the business. The channel is really the heart and soul of the company. 95% of our revenues come through partners, just like in Centra. That we expect to continue. In fact, we want to extend that. And for that to be true, I think we have to be very focused on how we can continue to be a platform for you to grow your business on. And so we just have to continue to remind ourselves that we're not here to deliver our success, we're here to deliver your success, because by relation we will profit and succeed as a consequence.
And I think that channel focus, a lot of organisations aspire to that channel focus. And one of the things that I found quite refreshing as well was in attending, say, for example, your global conference at Inspire, which is top of my agenda for everyone, except this year it's in Vegas, which I'm not overly excited about.
Vegas isn't our favourite place, but that's okay.
No, not overly excited about that. But one of the things that really jumped out at me in the conferences that Microsoft run and a lot of the materials that are available, again, was very much a focus on how do you make a channel partner successful.
Yes.
So I'll be the first to admit that having sat in an Inspire, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I texted one of my business partners and I said, we've got to look at our marketing. We're doing it all wrong. And that was because I sat in a session where Microsoft was saying to partners, this is the marketing way of the future, which was the whole, digital transformation, the digital approach to marketing, etc. So having that focus on channel partners, it's not just about, here's a product, here's the features and functionality, here's the business benefits to the end users we all go out and sell it to, go forth and sell. But it's far more about, this is how you need to build your business and this is how you need to evolve your business. Is there a whole group within Microsoft, like is that really the core focus? It's like, we do really cool products, we do great stuff. But that focus on the channel partner, do you find, again, you spent some time at IBM, you speak to other leaders such as yourselves, as I do. Do you find that as unique as what I see that? Are you hearing that feedback from other people in the market?
I am, but I would say we have a great heritage of having worked with partners over many years, even during the period where it was all about being an engineering company and being a product company, where we were working with our channel to help distribute product, right? So that was one way of doing business and a successful way for many years for many of our partners and for Microsoft. But I think we've tried to add to that this thought that if we could be more focused on your outcomes, on how you could be successful and how we can help you run a better business, and by relation, obviously, that will help our business in turn, we think that adds just another dimension. And it's all part of this transition that we think we're going through, which is away from being a product-centered company to being a company focused on outcomes. It's really easy to say, hard to do. But we are very much focused on how we can use cloud services to transform our clients so that they can become digital enterprises. And in the past, we might have high-fived if we'd signed a deal, we'd got a client to sign a new renewal. Today, we generally save those celebrations for when the client's actually delivered an outcome from using the services. So again, easier to say, hard to do, but that's what we try to focus on every day, which basically means every day there's another opportunity for us to help your business grow to the next level or not. And so, this idea of constant improvement and every day trying again to improve on what you did yesterday is fundamental to the cultural change at Microsoft.
So that kind of speaks to something which, people talk about, and I'm going to get probe a little bit here.
Okay. You ever thought of getting into like a Michael Parkinson line of
maybe someday.
This is
maybe
awesome.
Someday.
You're doing very well.
So you talk about, you don't necessarily high-five when you sign a big enterprise agreement, which used to be the way you did things. And now, as channel partners and in the market, it's very much consumption, adoption. And so what I'm hearing from you is the consumption and adoption you're saying is driven more by ensuring that the companies that you're providing these to are actually starting to embrace your technologies.
Yes.
Whereas as a channel partner, often it's like, how does that affect the Microsoft scorecard and how
Yes.
do people get paid, etc.
Yes.
What are your sort of feedback and comments on that?
Yeah, I think the scorecard has been a fundamental part of how Microsoft has run its business over the years. But just as we've gone from this transition of being a product-led company to being more outcomes-focused and cloud services-focused, so that emphasis on the scorecard needs to change as well. So yes, the scorecard there's still a scorecard at Microsoft. It's wonderful. We still use that to drive our business and to work with our partners. But we're very focused on consumption and usage and outcomes. And as a result, we're a business in transition, so we're far from perfect. You know that. But as we continue to move away from on-premise software to this world of cloud services, we know not too far from now we'll be in a 100% world where it's all about usage and consumption, and it's all about the outcomes that we delivered yesterday as to whether our clients and our partners will continue that relationship with us today. So, in the past, 3-year deal, you use the software or not, right? And Microsoft still gets paid, and the partner still gets paid to a large extent. In today's world, increasingly it'll be, well, if the service worked yesterday, then I'll keep using it today. If it's not, then I may look at alternatives, and there are lots and lots of alternatives for clients and partners to look at. So we sort of figure if we want to be successful into the future, we just need to be myopically focused on our partners and our clients, because if they're successful, then we will be in turn.
All right. And if you look at, such as mandate in terms of, having effectively, I can't remember exactly how he says it, and I won't put you on the spot to tell me, but, it's effectively having an impact on everybody on the planet.
Sure.
And that's obviously in your role there, and what Microsoft does, which is different to a lot of vendors out there, product vendors, is that you go right down to the one person end user, right down to the, the home user, the small business, the medium business, and the enterprise. In a role like yours, where you've got a shop front in Microsoft Store, you've got a bunch how do you actually balance the time yourself? Because everybody actually is important, and in achieving such's goal of impacting everyone on the planet, how do you balance your time in the different areas? Is it a squeaky wheel thing, or what sort of...
I think it's about setting priorities. It's also about acknowledging that we have some pretty good DNA in the company. Bill Gates and Paul Allen started this company 42 years ago. And there's some real positive intent inside the business in terms of our contribution far beyond just our shareholders and beyond just partners and our customers. It's about what we do in our communities and the contribution that we make more broadly. Especially now in this time with technology, where technology has this ability to either bridge the digital divide that we see opening up all around us in our communities, or in some cases, technology seems to be making that digital divide even wider, right? So,
an example being?
Well, benefits of technology going to the elites, right? And some of the political ramifications we're seeing around the world. It's not just a technology issue, but if you look at some of the political issues that we're seeing in Europe and in the US, a lot of that is driven through the implication of technology automating particular roles. Blue-collar work, for argument's sake, moving offshore, let's use the American example, and large swathes of the American population saying, well, hold on a second, this digital revolution we're living through and the automation that we're seeing is awesome if you live on the West Coast or the East Coast, not so good if you happen to work in one of the manufacturing plants in the country. And so being thoughtful about how technology is helping to move economies forward, but also not forgetting that there are real personal impacts here. And so this comes back to Satya's message to us and to the world about what Microsoft stands for. This idea that we want to empower every person, every organisation on the planet to achieve more is a marvellous collection of words. But what it means for each of us is, how do we use Microsoft to really bring that to life? And so the squeaky wheel thing is not so much squeaky wheel as, what do I feel passionate about? And it's what I talk to my team about here in the country. What do we feel passionate about? And what we found is that people generally have all sorts of interests outside work. Charities, community clubs, organisations, interests that they see technology can play an important role in, that Microsoft can play an important role in. And we encourage our team to bring that to work. We encourage our partners to think about that as well, so that we can, as a group, have a compounding impact on all of our communities across Australia, to address issues like homelessness, for example. That's something that
You're going to sleep out with me in a couple of weeks?
I don't think I'm going to sleep with you, Ronnie. But
I said sleep out. I was very particular in my choice of words.
So thank you. I'm glad you did that. So no, but thank you for the invitation. Homelessness, reconciliation in the country, we feel very passionate about. Accessibility. There are 2.5 million people in Australia that have some form of disability. And technology promises to offer all sorts of ways in which we can help to level the playing field for those people to more fully engage in the digital world. So,
and you have the poster child in Kenny Singh here as well.
We do. You know Kenny, of course.
I know Kenny very well, and visually impaired, and the technologies, and I think that the demonstration he did at Inspire was
up for me. Out of that whole event, that was the standout moment, because it really highlighted what a great impact it's had on his life and how he engages. And we sort of, from that, get just a glimpse and maybe an opening into the world of how we could apply technology to many, many others with disabilities to help them engage, as I say, in the digital world.
And I think that's a really great case in point. And for those of you who are watching, I'm sure the Kenny Singh presentation that he did at Inspire is available somewhere online, and I'd encourage you all to have a look at it because it is quite inspirational.
The thing I liked the most about that Seeing AI application was he used it to identify a Peroni beer. I'm not sure if you've seen the actual interview, but
that's right.
It was not only a wonderful application, but generated and directed in such a positive way. So
absolutely. Who can say no to a Peroni beer?
So true. So well done, Kenny.
So changing tack a little bit. So when you go out, in your role, you would obviously get to meet with some very, very senior people in large enterprises, in the ASX top 200, etc. Other CEOs who are interested in, the impact that Microsoft's going to have and working, in concert with you. What are some of the conversations that you have when you attend one of those types of meetings?
The biggest issue right now is this idea of culture and the impact that it has on an organisation. Whether it's because of the Royal Commission, which I think has influenced a lot of discussion at board level and at CEO level in the last little while, or whether it's more large organisations working out how do they prepare themselves for an uncertain future, how do they respond to competitors coming in from offshore, how do they respond to competitors who have been born in the cloud or who are technology driven, when many of the ASX 100 are companies that have been around for decades and aren't technology driven yet. So I think culture has proven to be the most important discussion, and so we are asked regularly about the experience at Microsoft. How is it that a large organisation like Microsoft has been able to fundamentally change its business with so much more still to do? But there's clearly been a change, and a lot of it has been, I think, sheeted back to Satya's influence and this cultural reinvigoration that we've been through. So that's a topic that comes up time and time again.
Okay, and anything else that comes up with them?
I think
I imagine you don't have technology discussions with them. No,
really? Well, we do to the extent of our disruption and how do we protect ourselves, how do we prepare ourselves for the future. So there's a big concern around that. Now that obviously is technology related, but very quickly it gets into people, right? Because there's plenty of technology around from us and many other partners players in the industry. But the issue then quickly gets back to, you talk about culture, but then it comes back to skills and people. Do we have the talent inside our organisation or in our partner community to help us go on this transformational journey? And so that's another area that we're really focused on through a national skills plan that Microsoft has brought to market in the last few months, where we're investing very heavily working with our clients and with government all around the country to help build skills plans so that people who, for example, are moving out of the automotive industry in South Australia to pick up new digital skills so that they can walk down the street to get a job with the digital shipyard. Or people who are in the public service today don't have a digital background but know they need to pick up those skills if they're going to help government transform, as our government leaders continue to tell us they wish to. So skills, people, how we actually profit from this moment. Australia is, in terms of international competitiveness, has continued to decline versus our peers in relation to adoption of technology and very specifically the capability of our workforce. Right. And so a massive issue for every company that I deal with in terms of how do they ensure they invest in the skills that are going to help fuel the growth of the future.
And I think what I'm hearing from this and what hopefully everybody who's watching this will be picking up is that there's a total other side to Microsoft. It's not the cloud, it's not just 365, it's not just Dynamics, it's not just AI, it's actually very much around the transformation of the places in which we live and how Microsoft can have an impact on that.
I think well said. I mean, we are interested in helping schools to be better locations for our kids to go and get a wonderful education in future. We're helping hospitals to provide better healthcare to all of us. We're focused on how we help aged care providers provide better healthcare in future for the aged sector. We're focused on helping mining companies be better miners and banks be better banks. So yeah, I think for us it's about outcomes, it's about our clients, it's about being industry focused and industry relevant. It's also why our partners continue to be so important and why Incentra is such a wonderful part of our ecosystem, because it's the skills that you have and the experience that you bring to the table, your knowledge of your customers, that is the most valuable. There's plenty of technology to go around. You know we're going to continue to invest in it and bring that to you, but it's the real outcomes that we hope we can deliver together that we think are most important.
And so you mentioned the partners. Let's touch on the one commercial partner.
Yeah.
Brand new approach to partnering for Microsoft.
Sure.
I say brand new because it's such a massive shift for you.
Yes.
It's been in market for nearly a year.
Yes.
What do you think have been the biggest impacts of that you've seen and feedback you've received from the channel community as to, it was a significant change. Yeah. Every role in Microsoft was thrown up for the offering effectively.
Indeed. And so big change. And I think we don't do that lightly because of the impact that has on existing relationships. Perhaps the biggest change we've been through in the field in the last 15 years, so just to put it into a historical context. Feedback has been positive in terms of great that you're simplifying the way in which you engage with us, your channel partner, right? So OCP, one channel partner, says what it means, which is one channel organisation inside Microsoft to deal with our partner relationships, as opposed to the many parts of Microsoft that would have had some reason to engage with different channel partners in the former model. So that's a good thing. Also appreciate the disruption that it's created. And so I want to say thank you to Incentra and to all of our partners who have been and continue to work with us on our journey. We're a work in progress. As I say, every day is another chance for us to either take another step forward or to make a mistake and try to learn from that. But we've really appreciated the support we've had from our channel community to say, yes, this is the right direction to go in. Please hurry up and get yourself set for the year, because again, the outcomes of our clients, our partners, that's what's important, not internal organisation or reorganisations inside Microsoft.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of really significant things. I could probably spend a lot of time talking about some of the significant impacts of it. But one of the things that I think has been really interesting is the way in which you've compensated some of the Microsoft people now, that they're actually compensated on solutions that the channel community creates that aren't driving necessarily Microsoft revenue directly, but have an indirect. So I don't need you to comment on that. I just think that that's an outstanding thing, because it truly, again, is another representation of trying to help the channel grow their business, which ultimately will have a downstream impact.
Yes.
So it's not the short-term gain. So changing tack entirely.
Okay.
Are you a reader?
I am.
Avid reader?
I am.
Good. So if you had 3 business books,
right,
and if you want to choose one of those as being a fiction book, because I think it's important to have our horizons spread further than just business.
Yes.
If you could pick 3 books that you'd recommend to the people that are watching this to read, what would they be? Well,
the first one will probably give away my age, but Long Walk to Freedom, which came out, I'm going to say 20 to 25 years ago. Nelson Mandela's book about his journey, his life, is a book that I'll always remember. Wonderful story about commitment, about a life struggle, integrity, maintaining a point of view despite all sorts of obstacles and pressures. So that would be one that springs to mind. Another one that I read just a couple of years ago that'll probably freak you out, Ronnie, Buddha in Blue Jeans, which is a sort of Buddhism applied in a corporate context, if you like. So
Buddha in Blue Jeans.
Yes. So Buddhism, I think, has been an interesting exploration for me over the last little while in terms of just reading and understanding more about the philosophy that is Buddhism, and very specifically the connection with mindfulness, which is another topic that we talk a lot about here at Microsoft. And this idea of being present in the moment and being, or at least attempting to be your best in every moment, and then continuing to grow and learn as an individual. It resonates a lot with a book that Satya has popularised inside our company called Mindset, which is written by an academic called Carol Dweck in the US. Her thesis is this idea that every person has the capability of changing and learning and growing, this idea of a growth mindset. Really simple concept, but there are all sorts of research to prove to us, if we didn't need to know this already, that we like to tell ourselves stories about whether I'm an engineering, I'm a technical type, or I'm a creative type, or I have this particular skill set and I'm not very good at X, Y, or Z. What we've found through research is that those sorts of tracks that we run in our minds and those stories that we tell ourselves end up being very limiting, because they cut off what might have otherwise been possible for us.
They're all fiction at the end of the day, aren't
they? They are indeed. This is all the stuff that goes through our head, 99% of it is a fiction that we make up and that rolls around our head all day, every day, and that's the soundtrack that we carry around with us. And so Buddha in Blue Jeans and this growth mindset book, I think, are really addressing some important topics.
You've done three.
Well, actually, I'm going to tell you one more. Another book called 1 Second Ahead, which is more corporate again in terms of mindfulness, but it's written by a couple of researchers that have really focused on the application of some of these techniques into day-to-day life. That's a book I would highly recommend to anyone.
Fantastic. And you're definitely speaking my language. We just ran a program through our organisation all to do with the hero's journey.
Right.
So if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell's works, fascinating in terms of, again, the stories we tell ourselves and the things that, our own limiting beliefs and the things that stop us on our quest, etc.
Yes.
And mindfulness, I think, is so underrated.
Yeah, it's a topic that's, I think, become very popular. It has for the last 10 years or so in corporate discussions, and to a certain extent it creates... It polarizes. A lot of people think there's not much in it, and then others, like myself, are strong advocates for it. Whether you buy into it or not, I think there's something fundamental about attempting to be your best, or at least working towards being your best, and in whatever form that takes, whether that's physical training, mental training, team training in a corporate context, whether you just want to be a better dad or a better husband or a better brother or a better friend. Being involved in that pursuit, I'm not sure there's anything more important in anyone's life.
And it's quite fulfilling too.
Indeed.
All right, so a couple more questions for you, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay.
So tell me what some of the biggest lessons you've learnt in your career are. Give me the top 3 lessons you've learnt in your career.
First one that comes to mind would be to take what I do seriously, but not to take myself too seriously. So I think that's something I learned years ago, which has been very good advice. It's what we do. It's important. There's no question the work that we do, but sometimes back to this idea of the soundtracks that we have, we get ourselves into a rut that we think it's also deadly serious, and it's not. So I think that would be the first. I think also this idea of being focused on being your best, and again, whether that's in a mindfulness construct or in any other form, whatever makes sense, being involved in how and focused on how you're going to get to what is your best, or at least pursuing it, I think is something that I've learned, I guess, in different forms over the years, and that's something that continues to be important. And then also having a higher purpose. So, and this may be back to the conversation about Satya and what we hope we stand for. We all get found out in life, for better or for worse. And if you don't have, I think, a connection with something beyond just the role that you're performing, and you're just getting a paycheck to perform a function at a company, or you're just performing some role, if you don't have a purpose beyond that, then I think in a way you may be missing the point. So having a higher purpose, connecting what you're doing with something that really does matter, that allows you to translate what you do on a day-to-day basis into something that has impact for people who need our help. We're privileged to live in Australia, and yet there are so many people. We've talked about the homeless community, we've talked about the Indigenous communities. There are so many areas where we in the technology industry can make a contribution. And that's my example, but connecting yourself with your higher purpose, finding what that is, I think is also a lesson that I learned some time ago that has proven to be important, not only for me, but I think by relation for many people that when I talked about this topic, they're all nodding, saying yes, that relates.
Yeah.
So.
Again, fundamentally agree with the things that you're talking about, and I think they're lessons that take time in life to learn.
They do.
They're not lessons. You could say that to the current generation who are coming through, and they're like, yeah, it sounds a bit airy-fairy, and then as they mature and the way they think changes, they'll too start to see a similar thing.
That might explain why my kids haven't got it just yet. Right?
That's right.
You might just clarify that for me there. I'm still working on them though.
I'm working on mine too, and they're teenagers now. So last question for you.
Yes.
Tell us the craziest experience you've ever had, Steve.
Craziest experience. So it might have been in my professional crazy experience. Might have been in my previous job at IBM. I was doing some work in smart cities, and I remember going to a small city in China. I don't remember the name of it now. But it just really brought home the scale of what they're doing in China. We went to a 100-acre site where they were creating a new smart city. And they were literally dynamiting this area to flatten it down to a certain level. And so I remember driving with the mayor and a few of the officials to go to this particular location. And all you could see, as far as you could see, were explosions going off and trucks taking rubble away from this area. It just brought home for me the scale of what has been happening in China for the last couple of decades, and what's likely to continue to happen, given how when they make a decision to set up a new city or to create a new environment, boy oh boy, can they really direct every resource that's necessary. The best part of it, though, was straight after that we went back to a banquet hall for a lunch, and there were 4 or 5 bottles of Johnnie Walker that came out, and then the whole team, their team, proceeded to spend the rest of the afternoon drinking through the afternoon. So crazy experience.
Crazy start, crazy in the end of the day.
Indeed it was. So happily they put the dynamite away by that stage when the Johnnie Walker came out. So, but a very crazy experience.
Well, it is a different dynamite, that's for sure.
Very true.
And Steve, I think this particular discussion that we've had has been dynamite. So I thank you very much for taking the time to spend time with us on the download. Appreciate that, you are a busy individual. You've got a large organisation to run. There is no doubt that Microsoft is absolutely making a difference, and I trust that everybody who's been watching today can actually see that the difference Microsoft is making is not just about the technology. It is very much such as vision. It is very much about having an impact on every organisation and person on the planet. And Steve, you're clearly living those values and bringing them through to the Australian operation. So thank you very much for taking the time.
My pleasure. Good to see you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks very much.